What's up, LA? Casey Diaz over here, host of the Shot Caller podcast. Hey, got a good guest with us today, Peter Meyerhoff, straight from AZ, Arizona. So any Arizona folks out there, hey, we're gonna call a shot right here. You better be listening. That's all I gotta say. Hey, it's gonna be a good interview. Let's talk about it. What's up, man?
Hey, what's going on, brother?
Good to have you here.
Absolutely, it's my pleasure.
You know, ran into you, and you know what's funny is I'm running into a lot of cats that on social media,
Yep.
and for a minute there, I thought, you know, because we get interviews from all over the place, but it seems like social media is now like that's the place.
That's where it all stems from.
It all stems from there, and so, you know, we met online. I checked out your profile and Whole 9 Yards, and I thought this would be a good interview, man. And so here we are. Welcome to the Shot Caller podcast. So I want to know, you know, you're from Arizona. You're born and raised there.
Yep.
So what is young Peter into in the younger years?
Yeah. So young Peter was it was all about sports for me growing up. You know, didn't wasn't even into video games too much. I was always in the streets just playing sports. Thought I was gonna walk my way into the leagues or something. I actually thought I'd have my pick at what sport I wanted to go pro at. That's all I did was played sports until I want to say around junior year in high school is when I started messing with painkillers, and that turned into meth and just my life spiraled downhill so fast. And then before you know it, kicked out of school, and what should have been spring break my senior high school, you know, I'm doing robberies and stuff and stealing cars, and we ended up burglarizing a house, and that's what sent me to prison, man. I got 12 years of prison from a kid that was the last person out of all my friends to even smoke weed. You know, I think I was 15. I still hadn't even smoked weed yet. And then
Yeah, that's kind of late for a teen.
yeah, I was the latest out of all my friends. All my friends were already smoking weed and drinking. I didn't. You know, it was all about sports for me, you know. And then enough friends or peer pressure, whatever it got to be, you know, and then finally started messing with it. And I have an addictive mind, an addictive personality. And then once I started messing with it, it was a wrap, you know.
Now, so did you grow up with, like, it seems like you were in sports, so both parents at home?
Yeah, both parents were home. My parents got divorced when I was like 10 years old or something, but both were still involved in my life, you know. They had houses a mile from each other. So, had a really good upbringing, no problems there at all.
So, like, you know, and that's the weird part for sometimes when I run across dudes like you where, you know, there was a healthy upbringing, you know, and, you know, the parents are involved, and, you know, statistically, you should come out on the straight and narrow and, you know, never see the lights of a cell.
I had everything in my life in front of me not to ever see a cell.
Yeah, and then when I run into you dudes, it's like, how does that happen? Like, you know, and I think it has a lot to do with influence that's out there. You know, it doesn't matter whether you're in a good neighborhood growing up in a suburb. Influence has a lot to do with how we end up in adulthood. And at 18, they throw a book at you, dude. Like,
Do a couple
of books.
Yeah, big ones too.
Man, I mean, you're in your trial. Did you go to trial, or did you just took a plea?
I took a plea, and I was supposed to get 4.5 to 9.25 years. They said the mitigated was 6.5 years, but what the crazy thing is, so it was a burglary charge, and they had ended up. I wore gloves during the whole thing. There was 10 kids involved total, right? I was the only one there was no fingerprints anywhere. I seriously felt like I could have beat the whole thing. But my little brother and all of them were kind of involved, and so I kind of just like took the rap and thought it would be okay. And then so they ended up charging my mom, my dad, and my grandma with my crime too for knowingly possessing stolen property. Like, they charged them all with felonies. So
Wait, what?
Yeah. So I was in the county jail for almost 2 years fighting a burglary case, which is unheard of.
Yeah. I mean, there's murder cases that only take 8 months.
I was in the county jail 20 months. From 18, so I didn't go to prison until I was 20 years old. So then they charged my mom, my dad, and my grandma. That's the only reason I even signed this plea. And But she said she wouldn't offer me a different plea, but as long as I signed the plea, that she would be okay recommending the minimum, which was 4.5 to 6.25 or something. So I'm like, okay, drop the charges against my family and I'll sign the plea. So she said she's going to drop the charge against my family. I signed the plea. She said she's going to recommend the minimum. I go into my sentencing, and I was honestly just happy to get on with it. And I swear I was going to get 4 years. I remember the last thing I said to my lawyer at my last little meeting with him was, I can't do the 6.5 years. You know, you got to give me this 4 years. I can't do 6.5 years. And he's like, you're not going to get the 6 years. And my sentencing day, and we're all shackled up, you know, up there in the jury box, and my lawyer won't even come near me. And I just had a bad feeling from the start, you know. Wow. He won't even come near me, and I finally have to like wave my hands at him, like, come say something to me. Like, I'm freaking out. I'm 20 years old.
Yeah, you're a kid.
Yeah, and then all he does is hand me this big pre-sentence report, and it says, he like points to me how she's asking for 13 years. And I'm like, nothing makes sense to me. He's like, don't worry about it. We all go. And I remember the judge said, I find it mitigated for the fact that you're 18 years when you committed this crime, and also the fact that you were on drugs. The drugs ruined my entire life. But he goes, also find it mitigated or aggravated for the amount of jewelry that was stolen, which I didn't even take the jewelry. And he goes, I think this calls for an aggravated sentence of 12 years. And I got sentenced to 12 years. Just like that. And I was just in shock, you know, like, I didn't think I was going to get 6 years or I'd be able to handle it. And then he doubled that. You know, I didn't know how I was going to handle 4 years. You know, I'm like from Ahwatukee, Arizona, you know, like they made fun of me when I came to prison that I had long blonde hair from Ahwatukee. You know, the nickname for it's called All White Tukey in there, you know, it's a little suburb area, you know, and I had to fight for that a lot of times too, you know, so.
Yeah. Once you're in there, I mean, it's
different world.
Yeah, it's just it's a Shark Tank, and you got to do whatever you got to do to survive. So I didn't know that part of about your parents getting charged as well. I mean, that's got to throw you for a loop.
The worst part about it was too is so after they did all that and they dropped the charges against them, when I went to prison 6 months into my prison sentence, then they bring up all the charges against my mom, my dad, and my grandma again. Nothing was in writing. It was a settlement conference.
So they
literally had to go to felony trial.
Wow.
Yeah. For my case, for one of the stupid thing I did as a kid, you know?
Oh, man. I mean, that's got to be, especially when you know that your parents, I mean, they're...
Or you got me with 12 years for a theft charge. That's not enough?
Yeah, like, you know, let's roll, let me get it over with. And
I've never in the state of Arizona ever seen or heard of anybody doing as much time as I did for
a burglary.
Charge. Yeah.
Wow, man.
Back door was open. It wasn't a home invasion.
Wow. So there's nobody tied up. There's no guns.
No. There wasn't even a window broken. The back door was open.
You just walked in. I mean,
we grew
obviously,
up with the kid. We used to grow up with the kids and hang out with them. Then we didn't like them, so it was just like I said, some dumb stuff we all did during spring break.
So so you get sentenced, and I want to touch base on. So what happens to your parents because they get they get dragged into court?
Yeah. So my mom got found obviously not guilty, but had to go to felony trial. My dad had to go to felony trial and got found not guilty, and ended up finding him guilty of some Class C misdemeanor, like knowingly possessing stolen property or something stupid like that.
And what's the conversation with you and them after that?
Oh, it's embarrassing, you know, like, and I'm like, I still to this day, I can't like, yeah, I mean, my dad is somewhat involved with the legal system too, you know, so like it affects his business in some states to this day, you know. But all I can do is try to repay and just, you know, be a better person because of it all, you know, because I can't change any of that stuff that happened.
Yeah, that's it. You know, you just got to go beyond that and do something productive. So here you are, you're 20 years old, and you're going to state prison.
6 foot, 144 pounds with long blonde hair from Ahwatukee, and I'm hitting.
So you don't look like this when you walk in.
I'm not this. No, this is not me. Yes, I was half this size.
What was your first thought when you walk into a yard?
I remember
these dudes are built up.
Twice like everybody looks like
everybody's
twice my
shape,
size. Yeah, and I'm like, and I always used to being like the popular kid, cool kid in school, you know. And I'm like, I remember that was the first time I walked that yard, and I felt like a nobody in my life. I felt like the first time people could just look at me and not even see that I was there, and I'm like, what is this? And that was, I mean, it's so crazy to try to like put it to a T, like the hardest things at first or something, because people that haven't been there, they don't realize like the hard stuff about the prison time isn't what other people would think it is. You know, it's the little stuff, you know, like that. I was like,
schooling.
Yeah, seriously, and having to change your whole mindset. And then I remember when I was a kid, all I wanted to do was horseplay and stupid stuff like that, and I couldn't, and I wanted to sleep in, and I couldn't. You have to mandatory wake up, and I'm like, dude, it felt like I was in a boot camp prison, like a bad dream that I couldn't wake up from,
And the other factor of it is that you never went to juvenile halls or anything like that.
Never.
So this is your first go at it.
Yes, absolute first go at it.
So that's like waking up to a nightmare, like from a nightmare.
Yeah, I mean, when I was a juvenile, I'd always got in trouble as a juvenile, but like my mom could come pick me up, and that was it. Like literally, I would beat people up, whatever assault case, whatever the stupid thing would be. Every time they would come, just call my mom, and she'd come pick me up.
Yeah, and you go home, and that's it.
It doesn't work like that when you're 18.
No, you're an adult at that time, and so you hit the yard, and you got to wake up like this. Like there's rules.
Yes.
Prison politics. Mm-hmm. What prison did you?
So it was actually a 3-yard because I obviously it was a non-dangerous crime, but just with my amount of time, I think Arizona's the same as California, where a 3-yard you can have lifers, and that's as low as they'll go. So I hit a 3-yard in the Tucson unit called Manzanita, and it's like a little dorm living, and they gave me the whole spiel like, what do you want to do? I remember when I first got to the yard, they didn't even believe me that I was doing 12 years for a theft charge, and I'm like. Why would I lie about that? I'm so new to prison. I'm like, I don't even understand what you guys are saying, And they're like, well, we're going to need your paper. We're going to get you. I'm like, okay, like, why would I lie about what I'm here for, But I was just, like I said, you're just clueless about everything. You have no idea. And like your entire life's going to change, and how you breathe and every minute of every day is completely different from how I was living my life, And you have to like instantly grow up, or there's no or.
Yeah, there is no or.
Yeah, there is no or.
You got to figure it out.
Yeah,
on the spot.
Yeah, and they have the talk with me. They give me like the whole rundown. They can clearly tell I am clueless about anything. And I would look at kids like that when I was the OG before I was getting out there. And I'm like, dude, this. You just start taking bets on me. Like, there's no chance this kid makes it. Or there's no chance this kid. And I was for sure that kid. I guarantee you, everybody in the world would have bet against me too.
Now, in California, in the CDC. It's very segregated.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's just how it is.
For sure.
You got the Southerners, you got the Northerners, you got the blacks on one side, you got the ABs or whoever it is, on that side. Is it
same thing?
Same thing.
Same thing in Arizona. Yeah, you never sell with anybody other than your other race.
Yeah.
You don't. I mean, us white boys and Mexicans, we get along, we back each other up, but it's still like you don't smoke with them, eat with them. A minimum yards you can do. I've never been to a minimum yard, but I just know from what they say. But 4 yards and all the place where I did time at is very, very,
very segregated. I mean, that's how it is.
Extremely. Yep. Yeah. You can have black friends and stuff, or black friends, Mexican friends, but it's other than that. It is what it is. You can talk to them on the yard, but that's it. Other than that, you stick to your own.
Yeah. In California, we weren't even allowed to talk.
Yeah, for sure. I've heard about that.
It was like there was no interaction with blacks at all. I mean, that's how it is. I don't know how it is now. I've been out for quite a bit.
Yeah.
But I know that, in any game, prison politics, any organization, and it gets watered down as it goes. So I don't know about prison politics now, but when I was in there, it was very
You're
very
right.
strict.
Now they're trying to do like intersegregation stuff where like I heard like in Arizona, like half the 4 yards are locked down for people that won't segregate with other races. And so, this all changed in the last 5 years since I've been out, because I've been out 5 years now.
And so you're in there. Any riots kick off?
Tons. Yeah, absolutely.
What was your first initial response to like? Dang, the jump! It's jumping now.
So I learned a little bit in jail because I used to box when I was a kid, and I was always like the tough dude. So I learned the one thing about I was able to pick up on pretty quick was if your people are tough, they'll respect you. You know what I'm saying? So like I learned, and that's what I just did in prison. I had heard like about heart checks and all the you hear all the prison's horror stories and stuff, and I didn't like just sitting around waiting. So I of course picked a fight with somebody right when I was in there, and. Just to show everybody that I wasn't like, and then come to find out afterwards, they thought I was like a gay dude because I had like long blonde hair and I was a little pretty boy, and I'm like, oh my God, no, like, why didn't you guys just ask me, Like, we didn't know you could fight like that. I'm like, why would you think anything different, But that's just how naive I was to the prison life, I was just a little kid coming through there from a
suburb.
Two completely different worlds, Two completely different worlds.
Yeah, it's funny that you shared that because it was the same thing that, and I had been through juvenile halls and probation camps, California Youth Authority, all that stuff. prior to getting to New Folsom, but you have this it's almost like a survival instinct that's built in you
For real.
When you enter into these yards, and right off the bat you're going, nah, it ain't gonna be me.
Yeah, for real. And you have to. I would have to have talks to myself. Like when I was going to
psych yourself up.
Yeah, for real. Like no matter what happens, you got this. You can do this. Or, I'd be like, you think you're a badass? This is where you prove it. Like seriously, I would have to have a little pep talk to myself all the time. Almost until I got out. People ask me all the time how I got through like those single cell times in maximum security, and it's like literally talking to myself every day. Yeah.
You gotta do what you gotta do.
Absolutely have to. You can't talk to no one else.
Your brain has to be prepared when you're in that one-man cell.
Absolutely.
Or else, one of the things that I'm sure that you also encountered was, dudes going crazy, talking to themselves, and then answering themselves.
Answering that, because that's what I would say. Because they'd be, you talking to yourself, like you can talk to yourself, you just can't answer it.
Can't answer it. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Because then you're in another level after that. I would always
joke, I'm like, ain't no one else to talk to over here.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but you got to do whatever keeps you strong. Are
so bad. I always joke about it because it's so bad. I remember just being in there, and I'd always work out and just talk to myself when I'm working out and just like envision stuff, and then I'd be like, I'm gonna make these cops pay for putting me in here. When I hit the yard, I'm doing this or I'm doing that. And then the second they let you out and you finally hit the yard, you're like, all right, I'm cool. I want to just chill now. You know what I mean? So it just changes because you're so happy to be out of the cell. Yeah.
So you're in there, and I mean, at some point, you people are getting to know you. Mm-hmm. They're noticing you. I'm sure whatever car we used to call them cars inside in the California prison system. Someone in your car is starting to pay attention to you, because at some point you end up getting elected as a shot caller yourself. Mm-hmm. How does that happen?
So yeah, like one of the I always talk about this, but my first when they had the first talk with me, asked me what I want to do, and I'm like, I pretty much said like, I just want to not be a lame. I'll do whatever, and so I raised my hand, and the first one I had to do, and I've shared about this story before, is I had to beat up one of the dudes that was like, not my prison pops, but he's one of the OGs in there that schooled me, and he's the first dude I had to put work in on and get, and when they told me about it, I had to wait because the dude that was running the yard, he'd been down like 30 years or something. It was waiting to go to minimum, so they wanted to obviously wait till he went to minimum and then have it done, So I'm 20 years old, knowing I'm going to get this dude for my first time ever in prison too, and I have to live with him too for another week or so until the dude running the yard gets rolled up, And so I remember how it happened, like it happened yesterday, I went to visit that day, and I come back from visit, and before I'd even came back to my building, walking on the yard, there said we had a cool cop in there, and BK had left. I'm like, oh, all right, it's going down then. And I wanted to get it done too, because I was sick of thinking about it. I lost sleep over this, but you can't say no after that.
You can't say no.
Yeah, it is what it is. It's 100% going down. Yeah. And that's another thing where I'd said you just have to talk yourself through it, And I have to do that every night, So he was there, and he was actually drawing a card. It sounds heartless when you think about it now, but it's just how prison was, He was actually drawing a card for, I don't remember if it was for my mom or something, but he was a really good artist. So when I literally came up from behind him, he was drawing a card with his headphones on for someone in my family, and I did my thing, came up from behind him, and then I remember we were locked down that day, and that's what's so addicting when you're such a young kid in there. So remember I told you I'm like a absolute nobody. I feel like I'm invincible for the first time in my life, and that's honestly one of the hardest things for me to get over at that young age, Yeah. And from then, so we got locked down for a day, and then when I'm coming out to chow the next day, then it's like, yo, youngster, I heard what you did. Yo, youngster, blah, blah, blah. And then all these OGs are coming up and introducing themselves to me now when they didn't even know who I was the day before. And I'm like, oh, shit. So I took that and ran with it, So I'm like, anybody that needs to get beat up, I want to do it. And I pretty much did, And so then before you know it, that's when people start noticing you, because that's all you have to do is talk shit in there, Yeah. And I was a little pretty boy, but I was a little badass dude in there, And raised my hand every single time. And then I remember the first yard I ran when I was 23, it was a 4-yard, and I still didn't even really know completely, but they had just rolled up a couple of dudes that were running the yard. And I remember thinking like, I should have this yard now. There's no one really on this yard that I'm going to take an order from. And, but I didn't even know how that whole procedure went. And I kind of went and told everybody, I'm like, yo, I'm taking this yard. Here's what it is, and obviously you just have to take care of who you take care of, But so it's all just with the fighting stuff, and before you know, you just build a name for yourself in there, and after years and just beating people up, and that's all I liked doing in there was fighting or just whatever,
And the thing about, once you become one, once you have that leadership, that authority on a yard like this, we see these prison movies, and they put so much sauce on the taco, and they make it look like it's a lucrative thing. And it really isn't, because when you really think about it, there's always going to be somebody that's going to want what you have.
Absolutely.
And they're willing to do the same thing that you did to get it. Mm-hmm. And so it's not like a lucrative position to really have.
For real.
Mean, you're walking in that yard and you just don't know the intentions of the next dude.
And it could be someone's got more time than you.
And exactly. Or they have a life sentence and they have nothing to lose.
Nothing at all to lose.
And you could be drawing a card.
Yeah, you're right.
For the same dude that's about to, we used to call them, books.
Mm-hmm.
And there you go. So you're 23 years old. You take a handle of this 4-yard, and that's got to do something to you as an individual as well, because now you're the big dog on the yard. 23 years. It doesn't even matter how old you are.
Yeah,
it's the amount of violence and it's the brutality that you put on in these yards,
and the fact that no one wanted to say no to me.
Yeah, and it's almost like we parade around that.
For real.
Because you see dudes that are in there for some pretty vicious crimes out there.
Absolutely.
And they know what you're in there for, because everybody knows what everybody's in there for.
Yeah.
We want to see paperwork. Mm-hmm. We want to make sure that we don't have any, sexual predators in here, no child molesters on these yards.
Absolutely.
So everybody knows what crime they came in there for. Yet you're the one that's running that yard. And there's always that mentality of, I'm young and I have something to prove in here, because
that was exactly what it was.
Right? I mean, that's how it is. So these movies really don't do justice, because it's almost like a fake picture of what a shot caller really is. It's not something comfortable,
mm-hmm.
because that position could be lost by one stupid mistake.
And it's the worst. It's the most stressful thing in the world. But I loved the tension. I was young, and I felt like if I have to be in prison this long, I'm gonna make my life. You know what I mean?
yeah, exactly.
And it got me all the attention that I was starving for those years.
Yeah,
and then and then once you get that, that's even more addicting than anything.
So you're in there, and at some point, how do you reach out to your family? And because this is it became a family affair. I mean, that's...
Yeah, my family, they always stay in touch. Like I said, that's what I talked about a little bit earlier, was getting out and being successful as a family. So I had a great family. They always were able to visit, unless I had like no visits for getting in trouble or dirty UAs or whatever it could be. But they always visit. We always, you talk on the phone and stuff, unless you're in Max and you only get a 10-minute phone call a week, but you still get behind the glass visits and stuff.
Yeah. So
I was super blessed to have a good family with the whole thing.
That's good. That's good stuff, man. Tell me about towards the end of your sentence, because this is important. We're about to shoot. We're not about to shoot. We're shooting these episodes on. They're about 15 to 20-minute episodes on how to help these dudes that are about to exit, and they're making parole. Your mind there's stress on that as well, mm-hmm. because I've been in here for so long. In your case, how much total time did you
12 years. I served 11 years and 7 months exactly.
It's a long time.
Yeah. So, like I said, the burglary happened spring break, what should have been my senior year of high school, and I got out a month after I turned 30 years old.
So you're 18 and a month before you turned 30 years old.
After I turned 30.
After you
didn't have a second of my 20s free.
Wow, man.
For burglary charge.
So tell me about that last week.
The last 2 days, I didn't sleep at all. I was in the hole too. So I told you I went to the hole and I got out pretty much high as my prison score, as high as it could go again too. Just waiting to go back to maximum security again. And man, like, you just counting every minute of every second down, and I didn't sleep the last 2 days in there, and it's just stressful. And that's what I've talked about now, is all the things that I worried about before I got out, or all the things that I thought I was gonna have to overcome, or all the obstacles I thought I was gonna have to overcome, weren't even what was in my way, you know. And that's why when we just talked about it briefly, but I talked about doing the stuff to try to help people from making it when they get out of prison, you know, because when the people are in prison, like I was myself, I'm so focused on worrying about stuff that's completely out of my control. And if I was putting that time or at least giving it some extra thought into what was actually going to be ahead of me that I had to overcome, it would make it so much easier, you know?
Yeah.
Because especially when you're in there, you have nothing but time to prepare. So why not make something and give them actually something that they have time to prepare for, rather than just figuring out when they get out, you know? Because that's when you get so that's when people make these bad rash decisions, and then they're in jail and they're like, what the you know? I mean, I always think of how many people got out and just tried to do it, didn't know what they had up against them, and then just got it's one time or just made one stupid move and they're sitting back in their prison cell, you know?
Yeah.
Probably with deja vu.
I still can't get over the fact that you got that much time for that type of crime.
I didn't get over it until I got out.
I wouldn't have either. Yeah,
I'm so happy now, and I don't care, and I feel like, no joke, my life is to a T where it's supposed to be, and everything just went just the course of how it has been to this podcast right now, you know.
And the thing is, like, a lot of these cats, they go in there, and you know, having family or someone that cares on the outside, or is willing to give you a second chance, it's very rare in the lives of many inmates that are, you know, coming out. You know, do they give you money? Does the state give you gate money?
$50.
$50.
Yeah.
Dang, I thought we had it bad. Yeah. We used to get $200.
No, $50 and a bus pass. And like, good luck.
Dang. Arizona ain't playing,
good
man.
Luck, yeah. And like I said, I had no license, so it takes months to get all that stuff.
Yeah.
We just talked about it briefly, but luckily I had my brother who was able to chauffeur me around, or like my family. Like, I have a very good family, and luckily I had that. If I didn't, who knows how I would have been able to succeed, you know? Which is why I'm so passionate about trying to help out other people when they get out of prison, you know, because, man, I used to sit in prison sometimes, just like we talked about. You said I had, with my upbringing, there was no reason I should have ever touched a prison cell, you know? Yeah. And there were so many kids in there, not kids, but just people I talked to in prison, that when you hear their stories, like, all I thought was that there's no way they don't end up in prison unless they die, you know? Yeah. Like, they had no chance of having a successful life from how they grew up. So I felt so bad for them. So, like, why could I not give back a little bit, you know, to try and help people? Even if they had upbringings, you know, we could teach them how to be successful out here, you know, because life is great once you figure it out, you know what I mean? Dude, my life's a fantasy right now. I can't even believe this. Seriously, to this day, you know, I still have things all the time where I cry driving in my car, you know, because I can't believe, like,
you're out.
And I never, ever thought I had a chance to have this life, you know, and I do, you know, but like I said, you just got to keep fighting and catch a break one time.
That's it. Because all it takes is one break.
One break.
That's it, man. And so I always talk about, you know, dudes on like death row, right? They always have that famous last meal. Mm-hmm. For us that get out, we have the famous first meal. Yeah. What was your first meal when you first got out?
You don't even believe, bro. I couldn't even eat for the first 2 days either, too.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I had, and then the first time I ate was at a golf course, and I just tried to eat like some breakfast food or something, because I'm serious. Like, I was screwed up. The first cop I saw when I got out, I had a absolute panic attack in my driveway. Just like, dude, I was screwed up in the head. Like, yeah, I had to do some major overcoming and stuff. But yeah, I had no even appetite for a few days, which was what was crazy. Like, I just felt like my stomach was so upset, and I just had the worst anxiety ever. Because I was coming out of a cell, you know, 12 years straight in a cell, like pale white, teeth were yellow.
No sun. There's no
nothing. Yeah,
no nothing.
You look like a completely different human being.
So it was a breakfast burrito that you had. That was your
2 days later. The golf course. Yeah,
that's good stuff, man. Yeah. I had a bucket of ice cream. That's.
Did you?
I had a bucket of ice cream, and I ate it so fast, man, that I went past the brain freeze. Didn't even waver at that. It just, you know, and we used to eat. I don't know how it was over there, but in the chow house, you're. Oh my gosh! You're doing this, right?
I'll ask her. My family still drives me nuts how I'm eating. I think last night, what was it? Yesterday I was eating breakfast. Oh, I got slapped yesterday. Not slapped, but she like hit me because I'm like just shoving the rest of my food in my mouth at breakfast. I'm like, I don't know if I forget that's how I'm used to it. My mom used to always tell me in prison, she goes, you know, you can't eat like that when you get out on the streets, right?
But that's how it is, man. I mean, your face is right by that tray, and you're just booming, and you know that bell's gonna ring.
And it usually don't taste too good, so you want to get it over with.
Yeah, you just want to get over it. Yeah. I mean. Did you guys have a SOS over there?
What's that?
Oh, so then you didn't have it because you would have known, right? SOS was it's a bad word, but S on a shingle, and it's like a gravy that goes on a jacked up muffin that they give you in there.
Oh no!
But that New Folsom, man, had the best SOS. Really? I'm pretty sure that the average citizen, they look at a plate of SOS and they're like, "Nah, I'm good."
Yeah.
But for us, it was like, "Oh, dude, it was awesome." But so you have your first meal. You gotta worry about getting a job or being in school. It's part of a parole, I'm assuming, in Arizona.
Yeah.
What's your first job out here?
I worked for my buddy doing like audiovisual stuff, and I sat out for like over a year because, I mean, when you get out after that, especially when you're covered head to toe in prison tattoos with no work history ever. You know, I'm 30 years old and
no work history.
I can't even fill an application because I don't even have a previous job.
Yeah.
You know.
And what about the application? At the end of that application, there's that.
Have you been convicted of a felony?
Yeah.
And luckily, well, you know what's funny? When I finally got someone to take a chance on me selling cars, I had been in prison so long, I technically could have answered the thing correct because it says, "Have you been convicted of a felony in the last 10 years?" And I'm like,
it's been 12 years.
I'd served 12 years straight, yeah. So, but yeah, it's a lot of people can just, you got to use the connections you have. You know what I'm saying? Everybody, I always share that. Everybody knows somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody, you know?
Yeah.
And that's what it's about, you know? Because especially when you get out after all the prison time, you're not really going to get a job solely based on your application anyways if you have no previous work history. You know, you got to know somebody.
And there's nothing, you know, I work with a lot of dudes that they get out and they have this mentality. And a lot of them that, I think there's a big difference between dudes that have done hard time in big yards.
You're absolutely right.
Than those dudes that have gone to lower yards.
2-yard life.
Yeah, and their mentality is just very different.
Because it's a vacation for them.
It is. It's a camp.
Yeah, it is. Because and I always share that. That's why, and you know what's crazy, and I'm that's why I always say like I'm so grateful for my life, and I honestly feel like I'm grateful that I got 12 years instead of getting the 4.5 years that I thought, because I felt like I would have been one of those little young punks that got 4 years in prison, went to some minimum crime, had some in-city job, didn't do no damn suffering, was getting high the whole time, and they make it right back out and they do the same thing because prison didn't even suck. It was a break from the streets, you know?
Exactly, yeah.
Break from living with their mom or whatever they do, and that's seriously what it is. So like, but until you have, and God, it's funny you say that because I always am so emphatic about that. There is a completely night and day different world.
There's a discipline
from people that do time on 2 yards and people that did time like me and you, and when you're straight slam down, especially. Dude, you could sometimes walk in and shower. It would just, I would almost laugh because it would just be so much drama or tension on the yard. You don't know what's going on, and you're straight walking with anxiety. Like you know, it's a different world. Like your heart's beating walking to breakfast. You know, like until you have experienced that, you can't even put it into words or try and explain it to anybody. And
my first meal was served by the Hillside Strangler. I don't.
Okay.
If you're familiar with that story, but that was the dude that gave me my first plate in there. And this dude's, you know, he's never getting out.
Yep.
But you have that in your head going, there's dudes in here that
never ever getting out.
Yeah, they have nothing to lose, man.
They could kill you, and they think of a human life like it's a fly.
Yeah, it's no big deal.
Yeah.
And you have to have that same mentality.
You have to.
Just like the next dude next to you. And, you know, nobody is trustworthy in there.
Yep.
I don't care if you've been cellies for the past 3 years, which that's very rare, you know, because you'll end up getting tired of the homeboy and, you know, whatever, right? It's definitely a different mentality. I see that dudes that come out of long sentences, when they come out here and they've been to these big yards, these maximum security yards, they actually come out headstrong and they become very productive. And the likelihood of them returning is almost slim to none, man. Because every dude that I know, that I ran in there with, never returned. I mean, these are dudes at 4 yards. They never returned. They came out after doing 20, 15 years, 10, and they never go back. And you see these dudes, they become business owners. They raise, you know, families. Man, I have at least 10 of those dudes that I keep in touch with, and none of them have ever reoffended.
You know why? It's because they're scared of actually going back to prison, because they've actually done real prison time.
Yeah.
You know, 2 yards and that stuff, that's not even real prison time.
It's not. We used to call it wino time.
I'm scared of one thing, going back to prison. That's it. Like, it's because I've been there, you know. I've been to the real yards, and if I go back to prison, I don't go to a 2-yard. You know, I
Nope.
go right back to maximum
Go right
security,
back in there.
straight in a single cell. You know,
Yep.
so that's what it's from. And God, you're so right with that, dude.
So you're out here, man. Well, that's what I wanted to touch on. So a lot of these dudes that spend, what we call wino time, year, 2 years, whatever, in these minimum security yards, they have this mentality when they come out that they can't see themselves flipping a burger or some minimum wage job. It's like they can't. The math doesn't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
And what I've seen with dudes that come out from doing long sentences from level 4 yards, they're willing to flip the burger, to mop a floor, to do whatever it takes.
Because anything was better than that cell we were in.
That's right, man.
You know?
That's right. And, my first 2 jobs, I worked 2 jobs back to back. No car.
I got goosebumps just thinking about it, yeah.
No car. I was on the bus and on the train to my first job at 5 a.m. And I'd get there early, jump on a bus again, straight to my second job. I only had about 40 minutes to get there. There was like, I'd go to a bathroom, change, and back I went to my next job. I didn't get home until like around 12, sometimes 12:30, and back at it again in the morning. And I did that for a long time. And I'm glad. I'm glad that I had a parole agent that wasn't going to put up with my stuff. We need that. I really believe that,
for real,
there's nothing better than a parole agent that's
on you.
It does something to you.
You know you can't around.
You know you can't mess around, man, and you got to be serious about it. I got a job. I got 2 jobs, and I made the best out of it. Dude, when I bought my first car, dude, that was like, I couldn't believe it. I had never owned something legally.
Yeah.
Or that I had worked hard for. And that was my, you know what I did? I did about, I think it was like 4 months of just cup of noodle soups. That's all I had for lunch.
Yeah.
And my whole entire check, I put it away.
Good man.
For 4 months,
Makes
bro.
it so much better though too when you get it finally.
Yeah, dude, and it wasn't like a brand new from a car from a new lot. It was a banger, dude. It was a hoopty.
Had your name on the title though.
But it was my name on my title.
Yep.
One of the doors had to be slammed twice to close. It's all gravy, like that's what it takes.
Yeah.
And it was mine though. I worked for that, and those little steps.
I
Man.
would say it's about taking steps.
It's steps, bro. Like you don't
Baby steps at first.
That's it.
Yeah, you got to.
So
the reason why it doesn't work though is what you're asking is because those people that are coming off the 2 yards and they're working at the in-city college and they have these in-city jobs and they're making minimum wage and they're coming back to work and getting high. If they're going to flipping burgers, their life is worse than it was when they were in prison. They literally had a better life in prison than out there doing that because they're not going to amount to anything. They don't have no work ethic. And in prison, like those 2 yards, I would always say it's not even like prison, bro. It's like camp.
It is,
and it seriously is, and there's a reason all those people from those 2 yards get out and they go right back.
And they go right back.
They're out there running amok, working at the colleges or doing whatever, getting high the entire time, and they're like, I gotta go home tomorrow.
Yeah, and there's so much freedom in these lower level yards.
Yeah,
there's so much freedom that they are camps.
Yeah.
They might have walls or a fence.
I know a few of them had to have like the fence is like 2 feet tall. You can escape if you want to. If
Yeah,
you're dumb enough to escape, go ahead.
You could just walk out.
Yeah, go ahead if you want to.
Yep. During countdown, they'll figure it out. But there is a different ethic. There's a different mentality for dudes that have done real time.
Yeah.
And so you get your first job, and you're taking that baby step to, all right, here we go. What's next after that?
So after that, I one thing that you can't teach in prison is hustle, and I like I said before, had all that time I was sitting in maximum security, and I remember I would do my workouts, and I would do my workouts facing out at the bars, and that's when I would just do my brainwashing, and I always say I used to try and brainwash myself and just talk to myself, about what I was going to do, and and luckily, man, my buddy had gave me a job working. I had no business even. It was doing AV stuff, audiovisual stuff, and I went away with the Nokia phone with Snake. I get out, I don't even know how to work my iPhone, but I'm doing AV stuff. Luckily, and I said it's always just about using your networking and using whatever connections you got. It was an old friend I had from high school, and he needed someone kind of just to do labor on other days, so he hired me on, and it just taught me how to like have work ethic and have a job, and show up to a job on time, and luckily my dad gave me a truck. He gave me his old Silverado when I got out of prison, so just like punctuation, because like I said, you have to take such baby steps, so I had to even figure out how to have a job and show up. And then once I figured out that, okay, I can actually do work, and that even just showed me that I could, okay, cool, I can do this work thing and like be a normal, productive member of society, and then I'm like, I want more, and I need to make more money, and I want to do this, and I want nice things. And luckily had got a chance to go sell cars. And my co-defendant, there was 2 kids involved in the entire case that didn't like try to throw the book at me and tell them it was me. And it was my little brother and Chad, and he was actually the finance director of a car dealership in Scottsdale. And I'd always sold things and always been good at talking. I always like talking to people, and everyone always told me to sell cars, and I'm like, no, I don't know. There's no way they'd hire me there, He actually gets to sit down, so I have a meeting with them, and, I'm did some dumb stuff. If you can look past it, I'll work my ass off, and so they ended up taking a chance on me, selling cars. And I went from doing that to having no money, no anything, to like making money like quick and in no time, and then once I figure that out, then I'm like, just life starts getting easier, because like your money stress is gone. And it's such a big thing. Like money doesn't buy happiness, but it makes it a lot easier, so you're not stressing about it,
tool.
Absolutely, man. And like that was my biggest worry, is how I was gonna have money out here, and how I was gonna be successful, and how I'm gonna, I was, my first step, and they had to go do such baby steps with me. At first I was living with my brother, and then when they had to try to teach me to start paying rent, I had to pay $150 a month rent to rent his room out, which was like I had to pay the DirecTV bill or like that. And I remember when I had it, I wasn't even happy about it, and I was like, right now I was like stressed about paying $150 a month, Then I got my own apartment, and I'm like, but it's just about, like we said, taking baby steps, man, and just figuring out,
Yeah, I remember getting my first apartment. It was in San Pedro, and dude, it was like maybe, I want to say 500 square feet, which is a small room, a whole lot bigger than 8 by 10. Yeah. So a 500 square foot room by yourself, dude, with my own, fridge.
Yeah, you're chilling.
One little bathroom. Yeah. I could close the door. All those things.
The bathroom has a door?
The bathroom has a door, and nobody's looking at me. What? Yeah. That was, and you start to appreciate,
for sure,
those things that you didn't look at prior
you didn't know about them.
You didn't know about them.
Yeah.
You didn't know about them, yeah. And responsibility does that to us, because that's how we're born. Like, we're born to take responsibility over ourselves. Like, I get into these I don't want to say arguments, because they're not. I just shut it down. When dudes come out and they have every excuse under the sun and they take on this victim mentality that the world is against them, the world owes them, and that's just plain out stupid, man. I don't buy that.
Yeah,
like you made your bed, now you're gonna sleep on it.
Yeah, and
stop crying about it. Do something that's gonna be productive, where respect is earned.
Absolutely,
both on the yard and out here. And once that clicks, there's better results for life, for anybody. And like you said, being honest with your first employer. Hey, I did some stupid stuff. I did it.
Yeah.
It wasn't somebody else's fault. I did it.
I was a kid. Everybody does dumb. Yeah.
I just need a break. Yeah. I need a job.
And what I say, and I'll tell you this, I will hustle my ass off.
That's it. And you prove it.
Yep.
You prove it, and I think that respect that employer gives you, man, that's such a great feeling, man. I remember my first job, man, just my first paycheck. It's like $100 and something bucks. I think it was like $160. Worked my tail off for that $165. But dude, there was this magical feeling that I didn't put a gun in nobody's face. I didn't tie nobody up. I earned this. And you respect every penny after that.
Absolutely.
So man, I'm glad you made it out, and but I want to talk about also what you're doing now. Let's fast forward, because now you work with teens and adults in recovery programs.
Yep.
What's that all about?
You know, like I told you, drugs is what ruined my life, you know, and then I continued to use them. You know, I got worse with drugs even after being in prison because I gave up on just life, you know, and I used to be religious, and I thought if God was there, there's no way God would have gave me 12 years. And I was just down a very deep path for 12 years, you know, and I always say, like, I just started messing with drugs before I went to prison, but it just ruined my life enough, and then I was just, like, became a pro at drugs in prison because that's all that you're around every single day, every day in there. And then got out and was obviously drinking and partying because, you know, I'm 30 years old. I've never even been to a bar, never been to a club, never done anything. So I was drinking, doing my thing, partying with that. But my thing is once I'm drinking, I get I say okay to anything, you know, and I'm very open about it. But, you know, don't even remember leaving the bar, and I went and got high with somebody, and I had a very bad drug overdose where I literally died. And somehow was brought back to life, you know, and by the time they had got me to the hospital, my heart was still only beating 6 beats a minute. The doctor said I was the only one to survive in that condition he's seen. And I've been sober since then, man. I just had a finally, like, that was just one of those breaking points, you know, where I could just, like, get out of the hospital and say, man, and, like, this too hard, or, you know, and this was before I'd ever started even selling a car, mind you. This is when I skipped over this, but, you know, because I was depressed. I didn't know what I was going to do for work out here, you know. I'd finally made it out of prison, and when you're in prison, all you think is, I got to get out, I want to do this, you know, and all you're thinking of is that. And you don't think about all the obstacles you got in front of you, you know? So then when I finally make it out, I'm like, all right, I'm out. Now what do I do, though? You know, like, once the honeymoon phase wears off and you have to pay rent, whether it's $150 a month or not, you know? Like, you have to pay bills, and I know that's only the start, and I'm going to have to start paying more and more money. Trust me, I knew how fortunate I was. I only had to pay $150 a month rent, but... and that's one of those things where, like, it could have been a give-up moment for me, too, you know? And I just probably got the and went and got high and ended up dying, and I feel like ever since that time, I feel like I had such a bigger purpose, you know, and I want to just share the story and just help people to not give up, you know, and because there's so many people in this world. You know, when I got sentenced to 12 years in prison, I thought there was no way in hell I was going to be able to do it, you know. When I made it through the first 6 years of it, I thought there's no way I was going to finish the next 6 years, you know. But you never know how strong you are until you're put in a situation you actually have to prove to yourself
under pressure.
But people are too scared of that, you know, and that they're too scared to put themselves under pressure, you know. And most people that think they can't just don't know because they've never put themselves in a situation, you know. You don't get better if you don't challenge yourself too, you know.
Yeah, no, that's true, man. So, and I love this, man, because you're not only helping those that you the best instructors are those that have been in it, like in that lifestyle, in the mud, in the darkness. Those are the best teachers, man. And you know, I've always said this with you know, whenever we saw people in suits or very clean cut in the neighborhoods out here in LA, and they came in to try to help. They had good intentions, but they came into these neighborhoods where everyone's a drug dealer, everyone's a gang member, and you come in there so tidy, nobody wants to hear you because you haven't been there. And yeah, maybe you've studied, you know, poverty, you've studied gang culture, but you didn't live it. So you have nothing to say to me. And that's how we take it. But when you have somebody that's been through that, like yourself, like myself, and you go and you talk to a teen, or you talk to, and it's not just even talk, it's, you know, going the extra mile. Dude, you know, like accountability with these cats. And when they see that we authentically care for them, then that's their turning point. Because you don't need to hit rock bottom. You really don't. You just got to have some kind of mentorship, an accountability partner that's going to talk sense into you and is going to tell you how it is. It's not going to tell you what you want to hear. They're going to tell you how it is, the realities of it. But you're doing that, and I love that, dude. But then you're also getting involved in entrepreneurship. You got this Sober Life clothing line. What's that, man?
Yeah, so that's another thing I started with just one of my best friends and he's actually, it's crazy enough, he's doing the same exact path as me. You know, he's been to prison a few times. He's the one actually that I started doing all the drugs with back in the day, and he'd been to prison a few times, and he's now sober almost 2 years or something, but we just started together, man, because we do, and you hear both of our stories. It's just like, that's why it works so well when I'm talking to kids, man, because you could see when I'm working with a kid now or something, and thinks he has no chance of life, or thinks like he's just got this huge mountain ahead of him that he can't get over, and then he hears 2 minutes of my story, and he's just like, I'm like, what you're dealing with doesn't seem like it's that bad anymore, huh? And he's like, no, and I'm like, that's how it works, you know.
Yeah.
So so we started that together, and then we're going to donate the proceeds from every dollar to helping kids in recovery, you know. And I want just the rest of my life. I know that I was, and you know what's crazy? I'm not even a super religious person anymore. Yeah. But I believe my life was saved to do something bigger, you know. So I just want to get the message around and make people be happy being sober, you know. Like, I get pulled over all the time at the gym, you know, like people like point to my hat. Are you like and I'm like, sober? Yeah, I am, you know. So yeah, just started this, man. And
is there a website for that? Or?
Yeah, so the website is www.thesoberlife, and that's TheSoberlife.com. Have its own Instagram page too, called thesoberlife.com. You can follow me on mine too, and it has all my other contact information too. My Instagram is Peter, Peter _Meyerhoff, Meyerhoff, and that has most of the stuff I'm doing on there.
That's good stuff, man. Hey, if you're out there and you're listening, whether you're in LA, this is the good part about this podcast is it's everywhere. It's national and international. So if you're out there and you want to support someone that is actually putting in the work, these are not just words. This dude is actually involved in the lives of teens and adults that are trying to straighten out their life. Go ahead, hit them up, look them up, and then go and support. Get some clothing items from them in bulk, and you know, and let's us really put our dollar bills to good use. You know, listen, the government doesn't have good programs like these. When individuals like Peter, like some of the dudes that I interview here on this podcast, these are dudes that are hands-on and really making a difference in our communities. I don't trust politicians. You know, it just, you know, we discover so much shadiness on that side. But when it comes to dudes that have been through some mud, yeah, we need to support them. So make sure that you go to his website, to his handles, and support it. And then you got a podcast that you're working on yourself as well, Chopping It Up with Chappie.
Yep.
So yeah, talk about that.
Yeah, I started when I first got out. I did a few episodes with the Fresh Out series, who's my partner, Big Herc. I don't know if you've heard of him, but so that's when I first got to doing some of the podcast stuff. And he has a Fresh Out series.
Big Herc, yeah. I'm familiar with him. Yeah.
So, he's one of the first ones I got involved with out here. Okay. And then I want to do one that's just like more like motivational about like life lesson stuff, you know, like overcoming that people think they can't overcome, you know. Yeah. So it's going to be like more like, obviously prison involves somewhat. It's going to be under the Fresh Out series. Okay. Prison involves somewhat, but more I'm going to put a twist on to like how I use my prison experiences to turn it into like positives out here.
That's good stuff, man. Hey, you know, we're coming into a close on this podcast, on this episode, but I want to say thank you so much for, number one, making the trip out here. I know, you know, that's a long drive, and then he shared some stuff that sometimes it happens, man, you know, on these road trips, but thank you so much, man, for your time, for what you're doing with the lives of these teenagers that have gone or are going through what we went through. For sure. And you're putting a stop. You're putting in the work for that, and I appreciate people like you, man. Same here. That's why I drove up here. You know, in this podcast, the beginning of it, when we put this together, I thought, you know, well, I'm just gonna have just clean cut Christian dudes and dudes that, you know, they were shot callers themselves. And then, you know, I prayed about it, and I thought, I need to give people like you as well, and other people that don't necessarily have to be Christians, but they're doing something productive with their freedom, and dude, you're somebody that people, these teenagers could look up to, and see that there is no life in prison life. Mm-hmm. There is nothing there, and you could rise to the ranks of a shot caller, and it means nothing.
Gives you $0 out here.
It gives you $0 out there. There's no credibility. That lifestyle sends you nowhere. We both found out that the hard way, unfortunately, but here we are with a second chance at life. And I'm proud of you, dude, man. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for bringing your, is this your wife or your girlfriend? Fiance. Oh, there it is, man. Yep. Now you really got to support Homeboy, man, and jump on all this clothing brand. There's going to be a wedding at some point. So, hey, make it happen, Captain. Thank you so much, Peter, my guest on the Shot Caller Podcast. Hey, make sure that you go to our YouTube channel, the Shot Caller Podcast there. You're going to be able to see and watch this episode on there, and press that, hit that bell button on there and subscribe. Till next time, Los Angeles and Arizona. Peace.